doing here is we want to bring you guys some value about what's going on with COVID-19 and real estate investors, what you guys can do to win in this uncertain time. So we're going to be going through some great stuff. My name is Nelson Camp. Once again, I'm an author of Money Tree. This is my next book that just released recently, From Broke to Success. And this one is a great book. Wrote it with some outstanding authors here in Winnipeg. So there's 6 of us that got together to bring you this. Many of you have already gotten the book, so really happy about that. Many of you will be able to get the value out of this book. And it's from just 6 different black boxes helping you learn how you can change your life. How many people know here that the middle class has been shrinking and getting smaller and smaller? And there's an opportunity here for a lot of people to be on the win side. And that's what we want, is for you guys to be able to be on the win side. Also been published in Canadian Real Estate Wealth many times. This is a great magazine. Encourage you to get a hold of Canadian Real Estate Wealth. It's a great magazine with lots of awesome content. So if you're looking as a real estate investor to get more information about investing in real estate, this is a magazine you should be getting and enjoy reading. Really enjoy this one. It's been around for a significant amount of time, and it's for real estate investors by real estate investors. So who are we? Well, you may be wondering, who is Teammate Real Estate? If you haven't been to a meeting before, this is the largest, and we are also the only free group in all of Winnipeg. So we're a group of like-minded individuals. We're investors, we're service providers, all kinds of individuals who like to be part of a group. And we recognize that teamwork makes the dream work. So we like to get together once a month. Today's a little bit different because we're doing it in a virtual fashion. We're going to work out some of the kinks, and we're going to be trying to bring you this content more often so that you can benefit from it. And that means that if you're part of Teammate Real Estate, we have both the event side, which is what you guys are going to be enjoying tonight, but we also have the academy side. So the academy side is for people that are looking for a post-secondary education, how to invest in Teammate, how to invest in real estate, how to be successful as a real estate investor, and everything that you can do to benefit from it. So we're going to be having a lot of opportunities for you to learn more about it. So let's do a little shout out here for student success. This is one of our students, Roldan Ching from R&R Investments, and he is just an outstanding young individual. These guys seem to be doing a deal every month, it seems. So this is his second investment property. He's going to be doing a live-in flip on this one. Negotiated great terms. People are still buying houses now, folks. People are buying, people are selling, people are getting involved in real estate despite everything else that's going on. And we want you too to be able to benefit from getting involved in real estate and enjoying what it can bring for you. So really, really proud of Roldan, young guy, and there's just no stopping him. So this is a great opportunity. If there's anybody here who's wondering, hey, what does that mean, a live-in flip? So a live-in flip is an opportunity where someone buys a property, moves into it, improves it, and then sells it on the other side. Now, many of you may know this, but some may not. One of the big advantages to doing that is that's one of the few things that creates some type of revenue that's not taxed at this point. And that's when you sell a home. Now, be clear, your intent has to be clear. This has to be the home that you're living in and not solely to modify it and sell it. You have to live there for a period of time. This is where you lay your head. This is where your bills are sent. This is your home. But that's the advantage of anyone, even my home that we're in right now. When you sell it on the other side, at this point at least, it is something that is not a taxable form of income. So keep that in mind. It's a great way to build some equity into an opportunity and for you to create an opportunity to grow that type of income. So way to go, Roldan. Really proud of you. So now, what a lot of you guys wanted to hear is the content about what real estate investors need to know to win with the new novel coronavirus, the COVID-19. Today we're going to be talking about number 1, which is a big one for everybody, collecting rent. Right? Everybody knows that if you're a landlord, you need to be collecting rent. And we want you guys to be able to have some information about how can we do this. How can we collect rent? What is going to be happening with rent? We're going to be talking about that. Also going to be talking about deferring mortgage payments. Lots of people discussing that recently. What are we going to be doing about that? Danger zones to watch out for. How many people know that when we're going through something unexpected, there are going to be some pitfalls and things to take into consideration. We're also going to be looking at opportunity. On one side, you've got to watch out. On the other side, there's some opportunity. So when opportunity knocks, what do? You answer the door. And we're also going to be talking about how this is an important time to be liquid and some creative ways so that you can be liquid during this period. Number one, collecting rent. Guys, how many of you know we are going into an unprecedented territory? This is really the first time we're going to ever see this type of unemployment in our country, and in many countries for that matter, not only our country. We're going into an unprecedented time of government assistance. We're going into a time people actually don't know what to expect because this is so new and so different. And so because of that, we're going to be in a position here where we're not sure what to expect. What we need to do and is educate ourselves, make sure that we know what is happening, what is factual, what is fear, and operate within the parameters that we have. So what's really important going forward is recognizing that you need income. Your building has to have income to operate as a real estate investor. So let's talk a little bit more about collecting rent, how we can do that, how we can work with tenants to help them and everybody else, because each and every one of us is going through this at the same time. So one thing that's important to keep in mind is that rent is still due. Despite the fact that all of this is taking place, rent is still due. And it's important to know that there are many employment income programs that are available to support Canadians. Not only Canadians, but also Americans. There are a lot of options available to people that are going to be looking for support during this period. So let's keep that in mind as we're moving forward, that there are programs and we need to be educated as real estate investors on what they are. Number one, it's important to encourage tenants to be creative. I encourage you first and foremost to have a plan about what you're doing. When we were made aware of a lot of the changes that were happening, when we realized a lot of people were going to be losing their employment temporarily, we took action and reached out to our tenants immediately to let them know that we knew what was going on. A certain amount of this will bring your tenant confidence, because then they know that you're aware and you're wanting to work with them. They're not going to feel they're on their own in this. They're going to recognize that you're there to support them, you understand what's happening, and you're there to help give them options and creative options. There's a lot of people that are panicked right now and they need some guidance. So the first thing we did is we recognized that these are times that are unprecedented and we need to be creative. The first and foremost creative thing is that we recognize everybody's taking on a certain amount of debt with what is taking place here. Countries are bankrupt, folks. This has never happened in the world, where the entire world has intentionally bankrupted itself because of an illness that's happened. This has never happened. And because of that, everybody is going into debt. Governments are going into debt. We have to recognize that these amounts of money that are coming to support people, families, employment assistance, etc., this is coming from tax dollars, from future tax dollars. So knowing that, going forward, we're recognizing the government is taking on debt for Canadians. Canadians will in turn, possibly, especially business owners, have to take on debt to weather some of the storm if they don't have the proper reserves available to be able to weather through what's happening right now. So take some time to think about creative options. So some of them we talk to our tenants about, hey, borrowing from mom and dad. You might think that sounds a little bit funny, but we have many tenants that are university students. Some of them have gone back to be with mom and dad, but they're keeping their apartment until they can come back. Some of them are going home. They're young professionals, and right now they want to be with their families. Some have been encouraged to take a credit line When I went to university, I had a credit line that I used as support when I needed it. And there's lots of opportunities right now, even for a 0% for 1 year credit card opportunity. The takeaway here, folks, is to encourage your tenants to have a plan. How are they going to be paying rent? Because rent still needs to be paid. That's the first step. Now, the 5-step process, after we've talked to them about creativity, is to be understanding and empathetic. As we've said, these are unprecedented times. Lots of people are feeling quite stressed about everything that's taken place and could really use some support. They really need to know what is going on, and they need someone to be understanding for them, that they're frightened. They need someone to take charge and encourage them in their fear and say, hey, you're not alone. All of us are going through this, not sure exactly what's happening. And to let them know that they're not alone. They're losing jobs, many of them, and that can be very frightening for some people. So it's important to recognize that. After you've talked to them, and if they're concerned, now it probably won't be an issue as much for this month, but going into next month, May is more likely to be a time when we're going to see tenants struggling, more in May. April, most of them have had their checks coming through in March. They're going to be getting their final checks, but this is going to be dragging on into May. And at that point, we're going to be trying to figure out exactly what's happening in May. So that's why we want to tell our tenants ahead of time now, plan and prepare for the coming months that may be difficult, right? So that's an important part about what we're doing. We're trying to get them to think about that ahead and plan ahead. So being empathetic is really important. Letting them know that we're going to have some type of evidence of interruptions. So if there is an interruption of earnings, they're going to have to provide that evidence to us to let us know. And we have an application process if they're going to need some help. And it starts with having an evidence of interruption of earnings. At that point, that's when they need to know that there are programs available. Number 3, right? There are a lot of employment income programs. Some of the details are still not clear yet. We know that there's going to be, there's been the discussion of $2,000 being offered to families as support that are required to stay home for childcare or aren't able to be at their jobs, or they were closed, the business they were working with was closed, or they were not able to go to work, they're not able to work from home. There's a lot of criteria that is very flexible to allow for people that need to be home to be able to get that income. There's also the non-taxable child benefit. There's the GST benefits that are all being increased. The most important is that you give your tenants a little bit of hand-holding during this process. Sometimes knowing that you're there to send them an email with some links on where they can apply is enough to make them feel more confident, to make them feel cared for, that you're willing to help them and work with them, because this assistance is available, and they just need that reassurance, especially if they're going through a time where they're stressed out about everything that's going on. That voice of reason and helping them is enormous. And for anybody, right? We're all in this to help one another out. So lots of social media, lots of people sharing things that are going on right now. Let's stick to the helpful stuff and get away from the fear. I think everybody knows we're going through unprecedented, difficult times. Let's get away from the fear side and focus more on what we can do to help each other in community and rebuild after everything that's going to take place. So once we've gone through the plan, number 4 that we're doing in our plan is going to an option of deferral of rent. But this is, as indicated here, the last resort. And it is not for the entire amount of rent either. Now you might say, well, why is this a last resort, Nelson? Well, because through experience I've seen with tenants is that, let's say a tenant has $1,000 rent. And many will say, well, you know, mortgage payments are being deferred. Some mortgage payments are being deferred. Sometimes it's principal, sometimes it's interest, sometimes it's month to month, sometimes it's 3 months, sometimes it's 6 months, but we still have operating costs all the way through as real estate investors. We still have the utilities, taxes, insurance. How many people know that with people home all the time, The toilet is flushing regularly, water is being used, power is being used, more heat is being consumed. And that's great. This is where people should be right now to prevent a lot of the spread. But because of that, our costs are actually increasing as real estate investors. So the deferral program is tough because if somebody misses their rent and you say, okay, for April, we're going to pause your rent, you can pick it up in May and then pay us 2 months rent, all of a sudden they have to pay $2,000 instead of $1,000. How realistic is that a tenant's going to be able to do that next month? Not very realistic. So that's why we've referred to this here as not the entire amount. So once a tenant is receiving their employment income, their first obligation is to housing. Always. Everybody's first obligation is to housing. After housing is paid, you pay for food so you can put something in the fridge. But if you haven't paid for your housing, you don't need to worry about filling the fridge because you won't have a fridge to fill. So you've got to pay for your housing first and then for food. And if a tenant says, hey, this month I can't pay you the $1,000, can I pay you the $500? We go back to the evidence of the amount they're receiving from EI, work with them in a reasonable fashion for a reasonable payment for rent, and then the remainder portion, for example, if there's $500 remaining, that portion then gets amortized over the rest of their lease agreement. So let's say they owe another $500. If there's 5 months left, the other 5 months, each of them will go up by $100 to absorb that deferred amount. And that's something that tenants need to understand as well, because there's a lot of misinformation out there about what is taking place in terms of payment expectations. Most tenants are very good at understanding, but if we have that step of a little bit of hand-holding and support with information up here and being empathetic, you're going to be able to really do better with them. And finally, get everything documented. You can have it in a mediated agreement format. You can get it into a contract that's signed and witnessed. But make sure whatever understanding you come to with your tenant, that there is some type of documentation that's showing that. That's number one, rent. Number two, a lot of people have been talking about deferring mortgage payments. And there's a lot of different schools of thought in this one. Some people think, oh, you know, well, we should defer rent or our mortgage payments, or we shouldn't defer our mortgage payments, but you know, the interest is going to be accruing on the other side. And what are some banks doing? And every bank's different. And the truth is, what we do know is that not all banks are the same. Every bank is a little bit different in what they're offering in terms of products. So it's important to work with the banks that you're currently working with and find out what they're offering. Generally, I believe it's a better approach to tell the bank exactly what you need. If you ask them, you have a lesser chance of getting what you want. In life, how many people know that you have to ask to get what you want? So ask for what you want. And my recommendation in this situation is to ask for a full deferral for both principal and interest for 6 months. For the full 6 months. It may be revisited after that, but if you have a guarantee right now of no principal, no interest for 6 months, it's going to give you a little bit of breathing room to get through this. It doesn't mean you're not going to have a lot of other costs to pick up, but it will give you a little bit of breathing room through this period. Some of you have reserve funds. That's great. Everybody should have some type of plan B for difficult times. Nobody saw this coming until it came in like a wave, and now it's happened. So many people are going to be needing that as a form of support financially in these deferred mortgages, or maybe even looking at an opportunity to pay it on the other side. So someone might say, well, Nelson, isn't the interest just going to be added to principal on the other end? Yeah, it is. That's correct. Deferral is exactly what it sounds like. You're not getting away from the payments. The banks aren't, out of the goodness of their heart, giving you and just waiving 1 month's payment or making it disappear. It's just being tacked on to the other end of your mortgage. You're still going to have to pay another payment on the end, plus you're going to owe more money on the interest. For a real estate investor, most of you know that a write-off for interest is better than a write-off for principal for tax purposes. So there is a little bit of an advantage there on the tax side, but the money still will get paid. The reality, folks, you and I both know banks always win. And that's fine. The guy with the money makes the rules. and they have the money, so they make the rules. But my advice would be to be very clear with the bank about exactly what you're asking for so it's clear. And that would be the best first step. So recommend deferring them if you can for the full 6 months. Ask for exactly what you want in both principal and rent. Now let's unpack the good and the bad, the best case scenario, and the worst case scenario on this. And in the meantime, guys, if you do have questions, ask them. Because the camera's flipped around, I'm not seeing the questions now, but I have an awesome team working with me. The other coaches are there. They're going to be trying to answer your questions. And at the end today, we're going to be bringing in my good friend Cam Rowland, and he's going to be helping with some of the questions. We're going to do them live together, and I'm going to flip the camera around for that part so we can really look one-on-one. But I would love to have your questions there, because if you're asking the question, guess what? There's probably somebody else who has the same question too. So let's move straight forward here to the next side, the real worst case scenario. And as a conservative investor, I like to be able to know what the worst case scenario is, and I like to be able to live with it, right? If I can be able to live with the worst case scenario, I know I'll be able to live with the best case scenario. So in the worst case scenario, you know what? You're going to get some reserve funds out of the deferring of mortgage, principal and interest. You're going to have those funds in case things happen that are unexpected. This is going to happen for 6 months. And I think a lot of you recognize that we're going to be in this for a period of time now. We're going to be coming out of this on the other end. I'm expecting to see somewhere between 30 and 40% unemployment. That has never before existed. There could be a potential loss of cash flow in your buildings, and there are seasons of that. Real estate investors understand that. Vacancy is something that we deal with at some times. This is another risk, and that might be a reduction in rents as the deferrals take place. Worst case scenario is some of those deferrals go into default at some point. So if you can handle that as a worst case scenario, I want to bring you to the other side of the fence now, the best case scenario. All right, so this is the worst case in my mind. You're going to have some trouble collecting some of those deferred payments, but you'll have the reserve funds to shore you up on those weak points and those weak months. Best case scenario is you have liquid cash. You're able to take that money to plan ahead, pay down some credit lines that you may have. I always say pay down credit lines. You don't want to pay down debt that you can't draw on if you need it, right? So if you do have some cash coming in, your tenants pay you, you have the deferral, you're in a stronger position, don't go spend that money. You may need it. The best thing to do right now is to hold on to it in a liquid form. Put it in a credit line. Put it somewhere where it can be used when you're going to need it, because you may in fact need it. This is a great way to give you some support on the reserve side, okay? You know what? Let's hope we're back to business in 90 days. That would be great. 60 days, even better. We're not going to be back in business by Easter. I think everybody would love to be having a great Easter party and be together with family and friends. We're all going to have to be creative with the Easter Bunny's notes this year and what he's got to say. So let's make sure we know what is going on in our families and what's going to be happening in the next 30, 60, 90 days. And finally, you may have, in the best case scenario, a little bit less cash flow, but you'll have far more cash to deal with. Now, I want to break this down a little bit before we get into number 3. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you own a portfolio of 4 properties, 4 rental properties, okay? And each of them, let's say the mortgage payment is around $1,250 a month. So $1,250 times 4, we're at $5,000. Are you following me? Maybe even $6,000 if the mortgages are a little bit higher on your rental properties. So let's take that money, that's about $5,000 a month. So that's $5,000 that you're not putting out necessarily into the mortgage that you're normally paying. Look at it this way, it's almost like a mini refinance every month on the properties. On your entire portfolio is basically what it is, because you're pulling the cash out now to be able to access it out of the value of the mortgage. So it's basically a refinance. Now take that $5,000, apply that over 6 months, you're looking at $30,000 cash. Best case scenario, you work with your tenants, things work out really good, everybody's on the ball, we're working together as a team. On the other end, you're going to have to pay your mortgages a little bit longer, but you'll have $30,000 cash. And with that cash, you can buy another investment property, you can keep it on a credit line, wait until things have passed to figure out exactly where that's going to go, but you will have some resource out of a mini refinance that you're able to access. So that's on the best case scenario. So once again, I kind of like to look at things from a best case, worst case scenario. You've got both sides of worst case, best case. And then what happens in between? Well, we'll see what happens in between. Cards sometimes fall in the middle. Danger zones. This one, I'm going to make it really brief and really clear. Airbnb and tourism in general is being hit really, really hard right now. People are not traveling. Travel has been banned interprovincially. People don't want any tourism happening in between. And it's a time right now where tourism is not where you want to be planted. Hotels have less than 10% occupancy right now. Another place that's being hit enormously is commercial real estate. And this is because a lot of people are realizing all of a sudden that their staff doesn't actually need an office. Many people are going to using people virtually from home, making calls from home, emails from home, having assigned tasks rather than working by the hour. And this is going to be the new way of doing business, folks. People are recognizing all the time that they don't need to pay somebody for hours of work as much as they need to pay them for what's being produced. So a lot of people are going to realize that they don't need their office space, or they need less square footage in their office space, which is going to result in people getting laid off, and it's going to result in a lot of vacancy in the commercial space. So be cognizant of that fact. And the last one is luxury and high-end rentals. When times are tough, people tend to scale back as a general rule. You don't want to be in some of those really high price point rents because that can really hurt you. So I encourage you strongly, as you look for other ventures, other future possibilities, stay away from the high-end luxury rentals right now, because I don't think that's where you want to be with the amount of uncertainty that's going on. Number 4, let's get right into number 4 quick. You know what? There's always opportunity. There are challenges that come in life, and folks, this isn't the last challenge you're going to have as a real estate investor. There's always going to be new challenges that need to be worked through. This is just an example of another one. This is a tough one. We're all going to be working together, but this is also going to create an immense amount of opportunity. Did you know that in the Great Depression, what they call the Dirty 30s, the 1930s, there were more millionaires created coming out of that period than any other time documented in human history? And some people say, well, being a millionaire isn't much nowadays. It's still something to strive for. It's a great benchmark to be hoping for, to have that $1 million net worth. And the Dirty 30s created more millionaires. That means that there's always opportunity. When people are panicking, when things aren't going right, when there's chicken littles everywhere, the sky is falling, people get emotional, people make emotional decisions, and if you're able to stay stoic, logical, and look at things in a fashion where you're a little bit detached emotionally, you're going to be able to be on the win side. I guarantee you, it gives you an unfair advantage automatically. So keep that in mind as we look at some of these opportunities, right? The most important part is to do something. We saw this in the financial crash of 2007, 2008. Some people took action, some didn't. And it was those that took action that came out on the winning side. So I'm calling this the limbo interest rates. Now, try to do a limbo that's about as low as I can go. Sorry, I wish I could go a little bit lower. I was hoping to get under the screen there, but I can't. We're going into negative interest rates, maybe. Folks, we have never seen interest rates that are going to be as low as what we're going into here. We thought interest rates were low a few years ago. I don't think we've seen anything yet. We just had another 0.25% drop a couple days ago. Mid-April, there's going to be another rate cut. I can't see anything but a rate cut coming. Is it going to be a 1/4 point? Is it going to be a 1/2 point? I don't know, but I know that there is another rate cut coming. And so do not lock in any refinancing at anything at a fixed rate at this point. I would say float variable, because you always have the opportunity to lock in afterwards. And there's going to be a lot of opportunity for some extremely aggressive subprime lending and maybe even negative interest rates. Negative interest rates is when we get to a place where we're actually looking at being paid to lend money. So I know that's a whole new concept. Maybe we'll shoot a video on that one, but keep that in mind as we go forward, that we could even see negative interest rates. Some other opportunities, we talked about how some of the commercial spaces are going to be suffering, but that also means that there may be a way to get into an opportunity to be able to get into office, mall, retail space conversions. We're seeing stores we have already been seeing stores close their doors like crazy over the last few years. Retail is dying, folks. So this is not going to help retail in any fashion unless you want to be in a commodity like a food store or a Dollarama or something like that. Retail store is going to be dying. People are ordering everything online. Where do you want to be right now? You want to be holding Amazon stock. You want to be holding Costco, Sobeys, Sam's Club, all of these clubs that are Walmart that are going to be exploding because they are the big businesses that are going to survive through this and thrive through this. So we've seen other places in the world where malls have closed completely and been converted to tiny space living. There's going to be a huge amount of new opportunity coming for this retail space, for office space. In the commercial market, we're not seeing the same kind of bank, the open ideas that banks have of supporting people. So keep that in mind. Hyperinflation is on the way. And very quickly, we'll shoot another video on this, but if you're wondering, well, what does hyperinflation mean, Nelson? Let me put it this way. If you have 10 Jaguars in the city, you want to buy yourself a nice Jaguar. You buy one, there's going to be a certain price to buy it. If you have 10,000 Jaguars available in the city you're in, what happens to the price of the Jaguar? It comes way down because there's just so many of them. It's not something that's as sought after. Everybody's got one. The price just drops immensely. The same thing happens with cash. The more we're pumping cash, debt into the economy right now, we're printing cash. The US can't even print cash fast enough for what's being spent right now. So what does that mean? That means that they're going to be going to a digital format, they're going to be going to other formats of cash, but the more cash that exists, the lower its value becomes, which goes into hyperinflation. So when hyperinflation happens, everything increases in cost. We haven't seen a stage of hyperinflation since around the 70s and 80s, where minimum wage was increased exponentially because the government needed money. So what did the government do? They forced companies to increase minimum wage by almost 100% because they needed more tax dollars, right? If people are making more money, they're paying more in income tax, and the government benefits on their end, but then the people that hurt are the companies because they have to pay their employees more. So then employees get laid off, prices go up of commodities, things that people are buying like crazy, and then hyperinflation happens, everything gets more expensive. We're heading that way again with everything that's coming. The opportunity in that is to know that certain assets will be increasing in value very quickly. So knowing that as a real estate investor is going to be wise, and what assets do you choose? You know what else is going to happen is we're going to be seeing foreclosures increase. A ton of foreclosures are going to be happening because people just won't have the money anymore to be able to service the debt. They will have taken on so much debt, trying to get through their job may not be there on the other side in the 90 days when we get back, in 120 days. There may be no job to go back to. And that's going to be creating a huge amount of opportunities for people that want to flip properties and to pick them up cash, for people that need to get out to avoid things like tax sale, to avoid things like foreclosure. And they're going to be looking for creative ways to get out quickly and easily. Some people can't list their property because they won't have the time to list their property and wait for the house to be listed, people coming through the house. Maybe they're frightened about having people through their house. On the other side, they're not going to want people coming through. They're going to want money immediately. They're going to need money right away. when all of these emotional things get involved, it creates an opportunity. And if you can go in logically with a cool head, liquid cash, and say, hey, what can I do to help here? You have an opportunity, and there's going to be lots of those. A word of caution on the flip side, we don't know what's going to happen to property values on the ARV side. Rental properties, people always need a place to live, especially if you're at the mid-range and rentals, right around average, you're in good shape. If you're on the higher end, be cautious. But with flips, we don't know what property values are going to do. We're going to shoot another video looking at some of the opportunities in the future as property values change, but keep in mind that there's going to be some great opportunities to pick up some properties. Even on the commercial side, if you can think of a way to make it more creative on the commercial side as well, I think we're going to see a lot of foreclosures in that area. Number 5, it is time to be liquid, folks. This is important. And then you'll say, well, Nelson, that's easy to say, but how do I do that? Well, here you go. Here are 5 ways that you can get liquid in a creative fashion, in an easy fashion, in a quick fashion. This is what you need to know if you want to be able to get liquid. Number 1, pay down your credit lines. If you have those mortgage deferrals coming in, don't spend the money. Use it wisely. Pay it down on credit lines so that you have access to cash. Refinance where possible, and I stress here, if you are going to refinance, don't take the cash, take it as a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. If you can refinance that way you can pull the money if you need it, and if you don't need it, you leave it there and you're not paying any debt servicing on it. In my opinion, that is the best type of credit to have access to. You want to be able to have those HELOCs available to you. The other advantage to the HELOC, obviously, is when you pull the money, you're paying interest only and not principal on it until you pay it back. So it gives you a great tax-deductible expense and an opportunity to use that money on demand when you need it immediately. Third thing, reduce personal expenses. Guys, this is a time for everybody to think about what they can be doing to lean in life. Everything from driving less, and maybe you don't need 2 vehicles in your family. What are you spending your money on normally? There's very little shopping happening now except online shopping. Well, maybe you don't need to. Maybe you can make some creative, healthy choices at home rather than going out and eating all the time. Be creative in ways that you can reduce your personal expenses. Is there a way to pay off some debt that's been bothering you and some payments that are getting at you? That is going to be another way to be able to have cash available. And finally, number 4, another great way is to make sure you have partners, and that's not an accident. I put it with a capital S in bold, available with lots of liquid cash. Focus on partners with cash. You don't want to be looking for partners with 10 or 20 grand. You want to be looking for partners with hundreds of thousands of dollars. When you're able to access that type of money, it's going to be extremely helpful to you and to the person lending the money. Especially if interest rates are falling, people are going to want to look for a safe place to put their money. You're going to be the answer to help them with that with some creative strategies in where they can put their money. And lots of people are going to be looking around for that. So the reason I say have lots of investors is you want to be able to speak with more than one. So have your partners available, find out who you can help, who's looking for help, and you'd be surprised how much money there is out there if you take the time to, rather than ask for it, look to see who you can help through the process on the other side. Guys, that is the content I had for today for the essential 5 things that I feel real estate investors really need to know. We're going to be taking this now. Before we go to some live Q&A, just want to finish up really quickly. Before I thank you guys for joining us and telling us thank you, we want you guys to leave with something. And what we want you to leave with today is knowing that at Teammade Real Estate, we want you guys to be able to succeed. We love seeing people succeed. We really do. The actionable step here, if you need help succeeding, Keep listening to our videos. Keep following the real estate investment groups. We're the only free group. We're the largest group. Any other groups that have started have been from students that we've mentored and coached in the past. I don't think we can get a greater compliment than that. We're here because we want to help you both on this side when we have events, but also on the academy side. If you're looking to get into some education at this time, to improve yourself, to turn yourself, if you've never tried real estate investing and some of this isn't making sense, or you're like, I need to ask some more questions, we're going to have that opportunity in a few minutes with some Q&A. But you may want to think about having an opportunity to work one-on-one with a mentor. This isn't a catch and release program. We don't bring you in for a few months and then wish you luck. We guarantee you that you'll get your first deal done with you when you work with us on the academy side, because we want to see people succeed. We don't believe in competition as much as we believe in cooperation. There's enough room for everybody to succeed. It's not you or me, it's how can we both succeed. And I've had people ask me before, Nelson, why do you coach people at Teammate? Are you not creating competition? Sure we are, but that doesn't mean that we all can't win. I don't consider myself competing against any of our students or any of our members of our team. We're a family, and more often I'll ask the question, how can we work together on this one? And we have an extensive network, an online mastermind where we're all able to connect and work together. If you're interested in a free strategy session, go to teammaderealestate.com. Fill out the form, let me know, say, hey Nelson, I want a strategy session. I'm doing them live with people, Facebook Messenger, FaceTime, whatever you want. Let's get together and talk about what the next step is for you. We want to see you succeed, especially coming out on the other side of everything that's been happening here. I think there's enough room for everybody to succeed. Make sure you go onto our website, request a strategy session. We want you to be there. We want to help you out. Yeah, you guys like those shades, right? Okay, I'm going to be putting those on again later just so you guys can get another good laugh at it. But let's have some questions here. My friends are with us. We're going to see what we can do to help you guys do well, to help you guys succeed. And this is why we're here. I've got time. I've put this time aside for you to see if we can help you out with some questions. Let's see if I can do something other than putting on a mystery mask here. Add a friend. All right, what have we got here? What do we got for questions? Yes, I do book shows. You can book me. I do stand-up comedy. Yes. Okay, any questions about real estate? How do I find partners? Alexandra, great question. How do I find partners? So looking for partners is usually something that I say, stop asking for money. When you stop asking for money, you can start attracting money. That's when you have an opportunity to say, not what do I need from you, but what can I help you with? And Alexandra, that's a great question because it's not a shortage of money. It's sometimes that people don't know how to frame what they're offering to somebody. So hopefully that helps you. That first part there is a great way to start a conversation into helping somebody and making sure that you're bringing them value first before you look for the value. What else have we got here? History, you like the history. I know you love history, Ray. That's great. I'm glad that you enjoyed that. Manchu's enjoying some of the nuggets that are coming. Like to always bring value. Whenever you guys are coming out, we want to make sure you guys are getting, hopefully you got some value out of the real life examples I gave you too, because we want to see real life examples. Okay. Federico says that Japan and Swiss are already in negative interest rates. So this is for a long time. I was in Japan, and when I was there, they were actually doing intergenerational mortgages, folks. We're not talking 25-year mortgages. We're talking 75, 100-year mortgages. So that, grandma and grandpa would start the mortgage, and then the kids, the parents, and then the kids would continue paying that mortgage until it was finally paid off down the road. So let's see what else we have for questions here. Okay, Alexander, you got your answer. Who else has got a question about what's going on? There's got to be something back here. Okay, Federico. Shaston says, if you are looking at a rental with existing tenants, you'd want to do serious background checks. Yeah, looks like teammate Valen was answering that one. You know what? I think the most important part with the tenants is what I said, is you need to work with them. We're all human beings. We're all going through this together. We're all trying to find a way to help one another as a community. And not paying your rent isn't helpful to anybody because it's not disappearing. It's just going to be on the side where it's just accruing and adding up. So helping tenants rather on the creative side is going to give you a way better chance at winning. Okay, there's more questions here. Holy smokes, great conversation. I'm loving it, guys. Lots out there. Hey, ton of you were tuning in. This is great. Yeah, we don't know how long this is going to last, right? And that's why I say we need to plan ahead. We need to make sure that we're planning not just for right now, but that we're planning for potentially months down the road, right? There's going to be more and more opportunities coming. And we don't even know what the world's going to look like. Is this going to be a new one world government? Are things going to be completely upside down in terms of government? Let's be honest here just for a minute if we can. The last $82 billion of stimulus money that was put into our country, which is a very small percentage compared to what the US has put, that's not free money. That's not money that came from nowhere. That's money that was borrowed from my children. That's money that was borrowed from my grandchildren that aren't even born yet. My kids aren't even in the workforce yet. And my grandchildren, they're not even alive yet. But they're going to be responsible for paying back these dollars. So although I do appreciate the stimulus and I think it's important, we don't want the velocity of money to stop. And that is the biggest danger from money. Money is not designed to be stagnant and be still. And if that's a new term for you guys, velocity of money, think about it this way. When you think about cash flow, the reason is cash is meant to be constantly moving, right? The tenant pay rent, you pay your bills, the bills go to the staff that are operating the businesses. You're doing a renovation project, it goes to a material supplier, it goes to your team that's working, the contractors, the money goes for materials. The money is constantly moving. And when money stops moving, that's when things get dangerous. That's when things like recessions happen. That's when a depression happens. Some people are saying this is going to be worse than the Great Depression. So we need to keep in mind that these things may be happening. And that's why the planning right now is so important for everything that's going to be coming down the road later. And so the velocity of money, that's why stimulus money is there, is to pick up the velocity of money. And we really need to keep that money working. Another question about whether we should be looking at single family dwelling or multifamily dwelling. So some of you have read my book, and I've got a section in Money Tree, my second book I wrote, Money Tree. If you don't have it, it's in there. Go take a look. I talk about comparing single family to multifamily. And there's different risk and reward with every type of investment. I'm telling people right now, if you want to be investing, I would say look for the multifamily to reduce your exposure to vacancy. There's a lot of chance if you have let's put it this way, you have a single family dwelling, you're trying to rent for $1,500. I say that's about the maximum. You know, once you hit $1,500, you're at a critical mass there with people are not willing to pay any more than that in rent. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It does happen, but you're going to see a very small amount of the market looking for that. And generally, it's when they're receiving money and they're not paying out of their own pocket. Because if they're paying out of their own pocket, they'd be buying a house. In a multifamily, if it's single family dwelling, you're missing out on a $1,500 rent payment 1 month. You also have your mortgage to pay, you have your taxes to pay, you have your insurance to pay, you have your utilities to pay. You're looking at a potential risk of $2,500 or more lost in that 1 month of lost revenue and expenses. If you have a multifamily building, say it's a three-unit building and you've got 1 unit empty, you've still got 2 others bringing in income. That's going to help float you through it. So I would say try to focus on that side there of having a multifamily just to reduce your risk. And it's a way of being able to have one roof to repair, one heating system if you have like a boiler or a furnace. I think that type of risk is going to be helpful. So Vishal's asking about how we're filling properties. So one of the important things, great question, that we're looking forward to right now is upcoming vacancies. We have great photos that we took of our buildings when they were freshly renovated, every single one of them. That's not a problem. We've got great photos, great video marketing content. That helps people to be able to picture, hey, what does it look like when there isn't stuff in here? Right now, in-person meetings are at essential only, right? We want to keep things essential as required. So what we've been doing lately is we've been having virtual showings of suites. We've been trying to incentivize new clients, make it simple for them. People are afraid. And if you recognize that people are afraid and help them, ask them what they want. What is it they're afraid of? And then help them. If they're saying, I don't want germs in there when I move in, no problem. We're going to be having the entire place spotless, sanitized, disinfected, top to bottom, straight through, right? So you're asking people what is it that they're frightened of and seeing if there's a way that you can help them through that. So we're thinking ahead. The last thing you want is a vacant suite and a last minute panic, right? Think ahead to where do you know you have some upcoming lease agreements and work with your tenants. If you have tenants and a lease agreement coming up, look at it this way. Let's say you're bringing in $1,200 a month on a suite. You may want to say, hey, what can I do to help you stay in your home for another year? It's crazy out there right now and not many people want to move. So work with your existing clientele too. See if there's a way to keep them in the suite, incentivize them. Even if you have to give them a little bit of a discount on their rent, it's a better situation to be in than taking an entire month, 2 months, 3 months of vacancy. You're going to lose more than you would have lost on giving them a discount in rent to keep them as a tenant, to keep them loyal. That is a huge cost for a landlord, is filling new suites. The amount of time and energy and money it consumes, let me tell you folks, that costs a lot of money. So if you can keep them in, that is one of the best ways of working with it. Let's see what else we have here for questions. Hey, I see some of the other coaches are here. Thanks, guys. Wow, there's lots of you that tuned in today. How do we find multifamily homes for good prices? The market has been way overpriced in the past year. So that is a tough one. I hear people say all the time that the market is overpriced. You know what? If we look at other capital cities within Canada, we are underpriced compared to what we're seeing in other places. And it may be hard to justify that by the numbers, but you have to understand some people in other markets, they can't even invest for cash flow. They're investing strictly for the wealth and the equity side. So we have a very strong advantage here that we can have a lot of advantages and levers in our favor with real estate. So looking for fair prices, generally it's going to be when you have a motivated seller that needs to sell. And in some industries, they're not as motivated, and multifamily is one of them. If an owner has a full building with rent coming in, their motivation is automatically going to be reduced because they know the money is coming in. What might incentivize people is if you help them with creative things in other ways. For example, what time of the year is it? What kind of capital gains are they going to be able to have if they sell that property? What type of conditions or occupancy date? Can you take over management from them ahead of time to help them with that? If you start looking at how you can help other people in creative ways, you're going to create deals that didn't even exist. In this market, Chibazor, you need to be creating deals, not just taking the deals that are brought to you. I have real estate agents bring me deals all the time, and sometimes I just have to say, here's my criteria. If it doesn't meet it, I'm not looking at it because it's just not worth it. So you have to really know, what are you looking for? What are you willing to work with? Where is the value add that you can bring to a building? And that's going to help you find better buildings. Ray's saying, hey, if you're looking to do some virtual staging, he can help you out with that. So yeah, he can do virtual showings. Ray takes great photos. Sorry, I said virtual staging. I don't know if he works on the virtual staging side, but for sure, for virtual tours, That is huge. I see Garrett Wong's online now. They've been doing at Upper Edge virtual showings as well. That's the way that a lot of people are going right now. Excuse me one sec. Want to take a sip of water, and the last thing I want to do online is cough because everybody's going to freak out. It's okay. There's a couple screens in between you and I if I cough. We're all okay. I've been in isolation. I mean, I'm waving at everybody in the street when I'm outside. I'm just so happy to see people, and I'm happy to hang out with you guys tonight. Hopefully you got a lot of value out of the Q&A here. Let's see if there's any other questions before we wrap it up for tonight. And if you do have other questions that we don't get to them, still post them in the comments. We're going to be trying to get to every one of your questions to answer them, because if you've got that question, there's a great chance that somebody else also has that question and is going to want to know more. So some question about financing and not maxing out. Great answer from some of my teammates here, which is awesome. Yeah, I think the best thing is to be able to have that easy liquid. So once again, I don't know if you guys remember, maybe you're just tuning in now and you didn't see the presentation. To be able to have cash, there's several creative ways. Watch back in the video where I talked about it if you can rewind it. But be careful when you are taking that money, taking that equity. If you can, take it in a way where you don't need to take it as a mortgage. One thing I'll maybe add to that refinance right now, be cautious about what properties you're asking for a 6-month deferral on. Many banks are saying we'll grant you the 6-month deferral, but if you do that, we're not allowing you to refinance within that period of time. So if you know you have a refinance coming up, be cautious about that, because we're going to see rates coming down. I have, I think, 3 or 4 mortgages up for renewal. I probably shouldn't have said that, because if we have any mortgage brokers here, they smell blood in the water now. But I've got a bunch of mortgages coming up for renewal. And excuse me, I'm being very cautious because I want to make sure I'm getting the greatest rates. Folks, we're going to be seeing interest rates below 2%. I heard someone talk about 2.14% on a variable the other day. And that's before another rate cut. This is basically free money. If you take into consideration the fact that right now interest rates, we're looking at about 2% on the inflation side. So if inflation is somewhere between 2.5%, and you're getting money at that same rate, you're actually getting technically free money, because if you were holding that money, it would be losing that value just as fast as the lent money that you're borrowing. So keep in mind that money has never been cheaper before. We're going into a great opportunity. And if you are going for those refinances, if you are getting a new mortgage, set it up from day one with a HELOC. You're going to thank me in the future for that. And if you don't understand what that means, put some more questions in here. Reach out to us. Once again, if you're looking for a strategy session, we're all doing these strategy sessions. Each and every one of us is certified coaches at Teammade Real Estate. We want to help you. We're still doing them virtually. Put together some questions. If you've got questions, let us know and we'll produce more content for you. If you want to know, we're going to get you a video that's going to help you better understand what you need to know and help you better grow your business. That's what we want to do. All right, guys, until next time, listen, I really enjoyed hanging out with all of you tonight. Many of you are friends. I miss shaking your hands, giving you a hug. Having our live event is something we can do, at least in the meantime for now, to keep us together. But I do look forward to when we're all able to get together again in person, giving you guys a warm handshake, a hug, and there's going to be no more fear. There's just going to be the excitement of the action and the choices you're making today that are definitely going to be impacting tomorrow as you move forward. So keep in mind, guys, Teammade Real Estate is here for you. I'm Nelson Camp, and until next time, take charge of tomorrow.